I'm probably going to get DMCA'd over this. I got a band practicing in the background, and Nancy Pelosi has decided that that's enough to get you busted. So, let's see how this goes. Oh, I keep forgetting to move my mic stand thingy. Still having trouble with this Rode desktop mic thingamabobber that everybody says is strong enough to handle the heavier mics. It's not. I'll get going in a second here. Has Facebook started the muting process yet? Look. I don't even want to look. I'll just get mad. All the AIX DSP people out there, we are just about back to our own stuff again. So next couple days we should really be hammering hard on the housekeeping, I hope. If not, then next week, but hopefully this week we're going to start. All right, here we go. So welcome to Evidence-Based Audio number 180, and this is Are You the Sensitive Type? And I guess I got to get it close to this mic and get a little bit louder because we have a lot of background going today. Band practicing as usual. Okay, here we go. So, first of all, let's see, last week, I know we talked about it a little bit. Ordered one of these Harley Benton GPA 100s. It's a pedal style guitar power amp. Pretty obvious that, like Behringer stuff, this is a rebadge of somebody else's product. I'm pretty sure it is anyway. Maybe these guys first made it. I doubt it. They didn't seem to know much about it when I emailed them. I had some questions about modding it, and it seemed like, the text didn't seem to know much about it as far as anybody that I could get a hold of. I could show you the email thread, but I don't think there's any point. The thing about this is it's a 100 watt, let's see, it says 100 watts at 8 ohms, class D amp, or 190 watts at 4 ohms. The thing weighs like 3 pounds, if that, and it's loud. I don't know what it is, RMS or whatever, but it's as loud as any 100 watt amp I've ever heard. It's loud. It's really loud. And it's just this tiny little thing. The problem with it is it uses Euro power, like 230 volts. So I had ordered a voltage, a step-up converter, step-up transformer, whatever. And that thing was so heavy, you may as well just bought a regular power amp that ran on 120, like a big power amp. Kind of defeated the whole purpose. It's really clunky, got in the way. Because I figure you get some of these, and in fact, let me pop this up, sorry. Lesgen F12 X200. You find some old dead guitar amp, a combo amp that had a 12-inch in it, throw away all the guts, and you put this on here, this Celestion F12 X200. This is a 12-inch speaker. We talked about it a couple weeks ago with the tweeter in it, and it's meant to be a full-range, flat response type of speaker for your modeling systems and stuff. So it's got a tweeter. You still use if you use it without an impulse response, I gave this a test. To run the amp through it without the impulse, it sounds like running an amp through a PA speaker. So it worked really well. But I figure you get that GPA 100 and any old guitar amp that doesn't work anymore or whatever, and just Velcro this to the top of it or whatever, and you got yourself a really kick-ass full-range flat response cabinet without paying for them. I don't know if you've seen the prices of these things. Let's see. Let's see. FRFR speaker. Let's just type that in Google and take a look. Now the ones like the altos and head rushes, they're like $250. It's pretty much about the cost of that amp and a speaker. But, you know, if you really want that traditional 12-inch speaker type of look, and, you know, amps are a dime a dozen. Any of the real FRFRs, like, see, none of these. See, a Line 6 power cab, $650. Let me see. So let me look on Guitar World here. Probably don't put the prices. Yeah, the Laney, $960. The Friedman ASC 10, $900. The one everybody always talks about, that Atomic CLR or whatever, I don't even know if they're available. Like, it seems like they're back ordered for forever, and they're still pretty expensive. I mean, all these things are crazy money. Whereas, I wouldn't call a Katana an FRFR. Come on. You know, so you save a bunch of money, and you might get a form factor you like better. So, but the problem, like I said, it was just, this doesn't run at 120. I tried it with the other thing, worked great, but it's not that convenient with the step-up converter. And somebody on the gear page had showed that there's one on the Japanese market called the Playtech GPA 100. Same name, same everything, just a little bit different printed graphics. And this one ran at 120 volts. And it's funny because the cord that comes with this is ungrounded, but all of these come with an IEC female receptacle. And digging around, somebody on the gear page had said Harley Benton GPA 400 power amp with Axe-Fx 2 120 volts. And the GPA 400, let me see if I can find it here. Is it in here? GPA 100. The GPA 400, if it's in here. Harley Benton GPA 400. So this one is another. If this is a regular rack unit, but it's like 200 watts a side or something, yeah. I don't know if it's 8 ohms, 4 ohms, or whatever. Okay, yeah, 2 times 100 watts at 8 ohms. So it's like 2 of these GPA 100 side by side. And again, this only runs at 230 volts. But somebody had taken a look, and he says, so same, just like me. When I received it, I was dismayed to find that it would only work at 230 volts. Bummer, I considered getting a transformer, but that would defeat the whole purpose of having a lightweight power amp. So it sat for a while. On a whim, I opened it up and discovered that there seemed to be a way to shunt a spot on the board to convert it to 120 volts. And you'll hear about this on all kinds of power supplies. Any modern device, you usually hear that either there's a switch that you can switch to turn it between 120 and 220 or 230 or whatever, or there's like a little solder pad you can bridge together. And so he bridged it, and he said it works. I don't know for sure that it's safe this way, and I don't know for sure that it's as loud, but he says it worked. And let's see what else somebody says. The guy says it's still working great, and that is June 20 versus August. Oh, pretty much a year the guy had it, and it's still working great. So I guess this is doing well. I don't know that it's making as much power, though. I question whether or not the parts are exactly right that you can just switch them. So he's showing the thing. And so I was asking about it, and somebody on the Reaper forum said, hey, go check out that same thread. And I looked again. I was like, I already had this thing open, and I couldn't find anything. And so I posted up some pictures of the board, and I kind of gave up. And then when I really thought about it, I was like, you know what? Keep looking. And if you're watching this, you can see that, I mean, tiny, tiny, tiny letters on this one where you can barely even read them because they're kind of mushed together. It says short 120 volt, open 230 volt. So I bridged them, and it seemed to work. It hasn't blown up yet. Again, I'm not sure that it's as loud as it was at 230 volts with the step-up transformer, but I don't know. I have another one of these FRFR speakers coming tomorrow. I'm gonna stick it in this old dead Viper cabinet where I pulled the guts out, and it's super light even with all that stuff. And we'll see how this works. So I'm pretty happy. To me, this is a major win. If we can, I forgot to tell you the price. These things cost, like, to get them to America, it ends up costing about $100. That's still a screaming deal. However, if you run into an old combo amp that runs 100 watts and you can just switch the speaker out and you're reasonably sure the amp is pretty flat, that's pretty awesome that you can use that too. And so I'm actually using a Fender Mustang like that right now. Fender Mustang V3 V2, which, I did a video on changing out one of the volume pots. Those things all seem to have scratchy, crazy, bad volume pots, and Fender couldn't tell me what the replacement was. So I just wired in a regular gang stereo pot, like wire chassis mount, not PC board mount one. And so far so good. I used it at practice last Saturday. We'll see how that holds up. And but this is a killer deal. I mean, this is such a light little power amp. You can get yourself a little FR out of anything. So go check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. So I had a question about speakers. So one of the speakers I was trying out was a 50 watt with, these are both Celestions, so hopefully this is kind of an apples to apple comparison. But one was a 50 watter, let's see, it's a Celestion Alnico Gold, whatever. 50 watt, said it had 100 dB SPL. 100, the sensitivity was 100 dB, so at 1 watt per meter. If you know how the sensitivity rating things work, I had another, the Celestion FR speaker is 97 sensitivity, and in theory, the way it's supposed to work, 3 decibels is like doubling the power, right? So that 100 watt speaker, or if you put 100 watts into the 200 watt speaker that has a 97 dB sensitivity, it should be the same as that 50 watter at 100 with 50 watts going into it. But, we, back in the day when we were doing the big albums, we routinely way overpowered these speakers. And I remember I was like, hey, that's a 25 watt speaker. You can't run that amp on it. You'll blow it up. And we never did. We'd run 100 watts into 25 watt speakers all day long. And they, these guys were trying to distort their speakers and stuff. And so I always kind of thought that the watts were kind of like for entertainment purposes only, because we sure ran a lot of power through these alleged 25 and 30 watt speakers. And so I really came up to that question, like, really, if I put 100 watts onto this 97 decibel sensitivity speaker, I can only, if I'm lucky, get as loud as that 50 watter that had the 100 decibel sensitivity, running at half that power. So I'd be better off running two 50 watt amps, right? But I don't think it's quite as linear as all that. And so I asked over at the gear page, take it for what it's worth. Let's see. He says, let's see, Sirius said, in the first case, unless I misunderstood, the 50 watt speaker will blow pretty quickly if the 100 watt amp is being dimed, but while working it will be quieter. As you get closer to the rated wattage, speakers compress and get less efficient. More electrical energy becomes heat versus sound waves. So if you put 10 watts into both speakers, they'll be about the same volume, but from there, the 100 watt speaker will slowly start to pull away as the power increases. I don't think that's true, because unless they had the same sensitivity, but part of that's true, I think. In the second case, same story. The 50 watt speaker will just blow, but it'll be louder to start with, and it might not be until 50 watts that the 200 watt lower sensitivity speaker starts pulling ahead. So it could be that if the speakers really compress around, their total watts, maybe it's going to be louder with the other one, because I can put a lot more power into it. I don't know. I said, I don't know that I've ever seen an alleged 25 or 50 watt speaker ever blow from a loud amp. We recorded 25 and 30 watt speakers for decades, putting massive dual 412 amounts of power into single speakers, and I don't think I've ever seen one blow. And that was right at the beginning of my time at the big studios. I was like, what the hell are you doing putting all that power into that little speaker? But hey, that seemed to be always how it worked. So somebody else says the wattage ratings are real. They don't indicate absolutes of speaker death, but will guide you toward their long-term survivability. And that makes sense. I've blown bass speakers, but never guitar speakers. I always use pretty robust speakers. I'm pretty sure if I ran my orange 200 something into a greenback at my band's volume, it wouldn't last through one song, let alone a whole practice set. Somebody else is higher sensitivity will equal more volume if sensitivity is measured the same way at maximum power output. But I don't know, man. I always try and it's like nobody ever reads what you actually write. So I said, in theory, since the 50 watt is 3 decibels more sensitive, shouldn't its SPL at 50 watts be equal to the 100 watt speaker with a 97 dB sensitivity at 100 watts? And he says both are powered. Yeah, man, I don't understand how they not understanding. In any case, sensitivity isn't related to power handling in any simple way. If you put 5 watts into a 15 watt speaker rated at 100 decibels and 5 watts into a 100 watt speaker rated at 95 decibels, the 15 watt speaker is going to be a good bit louder. That's exactly what I was asking. That's probably going to be true all the way up near the 15 watt speaker's power handling rating, although compression may have more of an effect on the 15 watt speaker than the 100 watt speaker at that point. So really, if this thing is 100 watts, and the Celestion FR is 97 decibels instead of 100, it shouldn't be any louder than the 50 watt speaker would be. But I ran all 100 watts into that thing and I didn't blow it up. So somebody else, DB man, if the method of measuring the sensitivity is the same and the frequency response to the two speakers is similar, 3 decibels more sensitivity is like doubling amp power. And that's like we were saying at the very beginning, that the 3 decibels is double the power, right? In theory. Somebody else, I don't know what's wrong with these guys. Okay, a 50 watt speaker and a 100 watt speaker, both rated at 97 decibel sensitivity, will theoretically produce the same volume up until you blow the speaker, I guess. A 200 watt speaker with 97 decibels sensitivity will generate less volume than a 50 watt speaker with 100 decibels sensitivity. Yeah. Now, this is where it really gets into it. Sirius said, I tried to cover that in the first post, but the dynamic response of speakers isn't a straight line up to the rated wattage. It's a curve, and once you get towards the half of the power rating, they're starting to compress more and more, so each doubling of power, you'll get less than 3 decibel increase as increasing the amounts of extra energy turns into heat in the coil. But you didn't actually specify the quoted case in your opening post. Yeah, all else being equal, if you give the 50 watt speaker 50 watts and the 100 watt speaker 100 watts, they'd probably be in the same ballpark volume-wise depending on their individual compression curves. Yeah. I had to do something on Facebook recently, which was to announce that if people strawmanned me or if they read something into my post that I didn't say and then accuse me of it and hold me to it, I was just going to start deleting people, blocking people, friends or not. And it's just crazy how no matter what you write, nobody ever actually reads what you wrote. They write their own stuff. Let's see. Okay, so DB Man said, I asked Dr. Decibel at Celestion about how they measure sensitivity, and he said they take an average over the useful range of the frequency response curve, leaving out significant peaks. This would appear to give a better idea of reality over a 1 watt at 1 meter at 1 kilohertz test I was told some other manufacturer used in the past. I mean that's the standard, right? They always say, what is the decibels at 1 watt at 1 meter? And it's insane to think about. So if you have this, let's say 100 watt sensitivity speaker, that means when you put 1 watt into it, it should be putting out 100 decibels SPL. That's insane. So why do we have 100 watt amps? So when you double that to 2, then allegedly you get 103 decibels, and then when you double the 2 to 4, you get 106 decibels, and then you double the 4 to 8, and we just keep going up here. Like, where do you end up at? And it's just so weird to think that we're talking about 1 watt, because 1 watt is nothing. It says, if it would seem if the two speakers in question were both Celestions, the sensitivity ratings would indicate relative loudness to your ears. Yeah, it's not really helpful. Anyway, there's a much more comprehensive video from Dave Ratt. If you're a sound man, you probably know who Dave Ratt is. If not, it's not just for live sound stuff. You should go check this guy out. Dave Ratt, R-A-T. He's got a video called Amplifier Power Watts versus Loudspeaker Sensitivity. And he tells all about amp power versus load, measuring output power, calculations, speaker efficiency versus watts, compare amps with differing peak versus RMS power outputs. So he really kind of goes through the whole gamut. And this would be a good video to take a look at. And any Dave Ratt video, really. Okay. Let's see. Let's pick up where we left off. I remember last week we were talking about DAWBench, who actually does apples to apples comparisons of audio interfaces, computers. They set up digital audio workstations. Pretty much DAWBench, Vin Curliano, and Jim Roseberry from Perfect Audio, Studio Cat, whatever. They're the two DAW gurus to me. When it comes to hardware, these are the two guys I want to talk to. DAWBench has a test suite so that you can actually really compare interfaces, CPUs, operating systems, all that stuff. And I don't know if you've been sleeping under a rock or whatever, but over the last couple of years, everything's talking about the Apple M1, the Apple Silicon, whatever, the M1 chip. And it's supposed to be this amazing, stupendous, it's just so much better than anything else ever in the universe, M1 CPUs. And those of us who have actually tried them, we're not feeling that power. They're super good with the efficiency. They don't eat the battery at all. Doesn't get hot. But in terms of the power they're promising, a lot is being blamed that it's using this thing called Rosetta, which is like a translator between the actual native Apple Silicon and the way the Intel chips ran. But there are some native running Apple Silicon stuff now. I mean, our plugins, I think Reaper. So we can actually test this thing, and it's not putting out what the hype lords are really saying. But far be it from me, because people just accuse me of bias or whatever. So DAWBench had I think we read this last week, but I'm going to read it again. So he said, coming off radio silence, the CPU wars are back with a vengeance, sparked by Apple's return to non-x86 chips. The resulting hysteria from some circles is for me reminiscent of the late 90s and early 2000s, when there was a RISC versus CISC, PowerPC versus x86 battles from their respective camps. Back then, there were more than a few questionable RDF moments with superior performance claims that were not really panning out once the rubber hit the road. And I don't know if you guys remember that. Like, everybody's talking about how superior those Motorola chips were to the Intel chips, and that wasn't true at all. I mean, they were different. Different is different. But anyways, and we are again seeing the same, if not higher level of hysteria surrounding the new Apple Silicon's performance superiority across articles, blogs, etc. Of course, my focus is purely audio production and DAW performance, things that are CPU bound as opposed to GPU bound, IPC, multiprocessing performance, etc. So after reading through and following up on some of the comparative performance tests posted and not getting anywhere near the variable being reported, I didn't either, but I'm not the professional tester guy. I turned my attention to developing a suite of DAWBench sessions that would run natively on cross-platform and across both x86 and the new Apple Silicon. The next hurdle was to find trusted testers that had access to the new Apple silicone units, sans an emotional attachment. I guess that's why you don't call me. That we could add to the team to expand the testing pool. Testing is ongoing, and we already have a large collated database. Currently, we have taken a bit of a breather, and while some are enjoying the northern summer break, but we'll finish up testing and post the results sometime in the next month or so. I won't give away too much just yet, but I will say that the results are not in line with some of the hysterical claims being made by some of the other commentators. Intel's 12th generation already has Apple's measure with less cores, and with new chips coming from both AMD and Intel in the next 6 months, including Intel's new HEDT Xeon WS line with higher cores, the gloves are off. Stay tuned. P.S. I have my goggles, gloves, and biosuit on hand in preparation for when I release the reports. And let's go to some of these comments here. Can't wait for that. Your tests are very reliable and are always my references. Of course, Dawbench is... Listen, we've had a couple shows where the Dunning-Krugers over at the Reaper users group on Facebook were attacking me for talking about Jim Roseberry and Vin Curliano's advice. And, you know, sorry, these are the two guys that really know their stuff. And that's just the way it is. So he says, Apple CPUs carry definitely too much more myths than they deserve. Sam Lowe says, very interested. I've been running an M1 Mac Studio for a while now. I have my suspicions Rosetta is a contributor to why things aren't as blistering fast as they said they would be, as Pro Tools is still not native to M1. Dawbench answers, still a lot of variables, obviously, until everything goes 100% Apple Silicon native, but my testing is not through Rosetta. It's 100% Apple Silicon native in Reaper using internal plugins on the DSP testing, and Contact 6, which is Apple Silicon native for the virtual instrument testing. Apple Silicon is fast, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near as fast as being made out by the RDF pundits. What is RDF? Sorry. Apple will need more than the gains being made in M2 once the larger core next-gen x86 hits. Interesting. So the Intels are supposed to be cooking. I'll be right back. Let me check on something. That's right.
I think I never in my life listened to that style of music, so it's like out of my realm. But I'll give it a shot. Frank's gonna text me some songs, and I'll walk around the street and listen. And he'll get
across the street where you're looking at that offshore part.
Yeah.
The guy who has a restaurant there, but it's 2808. They've got pretty much near the charter funk band for Illinois. So that guy knows everybody.
Is it a regional band?
Oh yeah, they only do originals, but they're not looking great. It's just something you should know.
Well, hey, if they're very much into music, I don't see why they wouldn't want to. Possibly.
Yeah, you should.
Start a different.
The guy who owns it's Steve Sporey. So actually they're open right now. It's called Whiskey Smoke 808 over at that Boston Sports Bar. You guys know where that is? Right across the street from where he's working. You know where Boston, right?
Yeah. I was there earlier.
So you know where
You
he's
said what? Whiskey Box? Stay away?
The owner of the name is Sporey. He's got a band called
Like he's part of that band?
But for like the hardcore scene and stuff in the way, nothing happens. That guy's always in the middle of everything. So they're good people to know. Maybe it's different kind of music, but pretty much no matter what style of music is, everybody knows each other here. Except we don't know. We really don't. Yeah, I would go meet Ford if ever.
Should I say Aaron told me that?
Tell me you're doing originals and stuff. He won't have anything for you right away, but it's just important that you.
I would just love to play.
Yeah, and he'll know if anybody. There's guys that come in on Tuesdays. Actually, ask him about it. Just say, hey, I got there until about 11 o'clock. Sure you got right now. Right in the back over there. Yeah, definitely meet them. These guys play old people music. Those guys play young people music, and then everybody else out there plays some kind of crap reggae.
Why are they playing that? That's instrument.
Oh yeah.
Because of the retire.
Just in general, I think it plays either reggae or old people. That's it. Period. Unless you put on your own show, which is something for you.
What's the point?
Anybody who's not listening to reggae, old, young, whatever, there's really no place here. So if playing originals in Hawaii, it's go silent. There's no, there's no.
But don't you think we need to shake up the scene?
That's why we put on our own shows, because none of the clubs will take it, so we just do our own.
I actually been getting a feel for reggae lately.
Yeah,
Maybe I can even start writing some reggae.
Yeah. And that's my cousin does. But I would go meet Corey before anybody goes tonight. You should meet him. Yeah, I would. He's just right around the corner, right there.
You're so fine.
Yeah, just don't like the go over there.
Nice that you go to the place.
Yeah.
You just nail.
All right.
Okay, sorry about that. So let me finish this comments here. They're saying Mike Havrlock says some people just can't handle what the hard data shows. And how many times has that come to pass when you're talking about mic preamp comparisons, magical speaker cables, magical guitar cables, all that kind of stuff. This will be fun. I'm a PC guy and welcome Apple's innovations to the market. It spawns fiercer competition. Now, that's the important part. This M1 has to be scaring the crap out of Intel. Whether or not it lives up to the hype at all, people are buying them. And so there you go. So we'll talk about this in a second. Richard Linton said, so when do we picket Steinberg headquarters about MMCSS? Now, MMCSS is a whole issue that Dawbench likes to bring up a lot, Vin Curliano. It's been kind of a nightmare for certain stuff. You know, I tried different ways in Reaper. It kind of seems to work either way. So Dawbench said, you had to go there. What's MCSS? Lol. Joking, they have never acknowledged it being a problem post Cubase 10. So as they say, don't hold your breath. So, yeah, I don't even know if we should get into this. So somebody else, Robert Costner, said, will be interesting to see. I wonder if Apple is still a winner when it comes to power efficiency, though. And this is funny because this is like that old joke about how tuner, whatever, you know, the guys they used to call the cars they call ricers. They would be like little 4-cylinder cars, and they'd put a giant exhaust on it to make them loud, but they're still slow as all hell. The one argument that they could win against the muscle car owners is I get better gas mileage. The muscle car owner doesn't care. He just wants to know his car pulls wheelies, you know. So you really didn't win anything with that gas mileage argument. So Dawbench says, without a doubt, as the chips are the same for both mobile and desktop, but I'm not focusing on power per watt. Neither are. We want to run our plugins. I am keeping the focus on outright DAW performance. The Mac Studio is going head-to-head against upper-level Enthusiast and HEDT, so for audio work, it's going to be needing a significant uptick in IPC and or core count to stay within range of what's coming down the x86 pipe in the next 6 months. Now, I'm not counting my chickens before they're hatched. I want to know how this is going against current Intel offerings or stuff you could actually buy. But, you know, he's probably right about that. It's worth mentioning the Apple Silicon also has a massive GPU resources as well, which are of no benefit to our specific domain. I don't know if that's true about no benefit, but I will tell you that I have yet to see any instance where that onboard GPU is even like an old crappy NVIDIA, like an old one. I mean, like even the crappiest old NVIDIA video cards smoke that thing. Anything that I've seen, anytime somebody's doing an actual FPS test. But the GPU might be worth something because, maybe there's a new CUDA or some other way like Universal Audio of running plugins on the video card. So who knows? Mike Haverlock says, I think for many people in home studios like myself, the Mac is also being used for video editing. I do all my Dawn guitar videos on a separate 5950X 3080 system. Ouch. If I wanted super quiet and didn't need video, I'd build one with a silent basic GPU. Yeah. But you're not going to, I don't think, yeah, actually, weren't people saying that the M1 were actually rendering video pretty fast? Maybe. I got to look into that. So DawBench answers with, video is a completely different beast and can be a zoo from personal experience. It will come down to editing software and the respective optimizations. Apple Silicon is very strong in video editing processing on their dedicated applications. On Windows, Adobe and DaVinci seem the go-tos. So it'd be worth the cross-platform head-to-head, but then we're dealing with Intel's GPUs versus internal GPUs versus dedicated, etc. And the peanut gallery will always be primed and ready to find the cracks in the matrix. I do have a close friend who is a cross-platform and heavily into video as well, has Apple Silicon, a Mac Pro with the Afterburner DSP card, and Windows platform, so I'll give him a nudge. So that'd be interesting to find out about, because I did hear that it was rendering video faster, but, could be the same as whatever all the audio claims everybody made. Okay, so Timur Born over at the RME forums, we're talking about the MMCSS thing. So MMCSS, if you really listen to DawBench and stuff, this is you'll see it in Reaper, like in the settings and stuff. Enable or disable. So multimedia class scheduling system or something like that. I don't know what it does, but Tim tells you a little bit. He says, it's complicated, especially with Cubase. MMCSS was introduced with Windows Vista alongside the introduction of Desktop Windows Manager. In the past, all DAW software used non-real-time priority 15 for their audio, MIDI, and the main ASIO RME driver thread. Then Desktop Windows Manager came along and used the very same priority to display desktop content like Windows, which caused conflicts. MMCSS is a workaround to allow audio MIDI threads to use real-time priorities above 15, usually 24 to 26 out of 31, without threatening to stall the whole system. Most DAW software needed years to implement MMCSS, if at all. Most software handles MMCSS on its own, but then Steinberg revised the ASIO specs, making it mandatory for ASIO drivers to implement MMCSS on their own. This causes all kinds of possible issues. So if you didn't know, VST and ASIO, as far as I know, they're from Steinberg. So, they're in charge of the formats. The RME ASIO driver may use a different priority than the DAW software uses for its other multi-core MMCSS threads, allowing to turn MMCSS off in the driver and thus allow the DAW software to control its priority is the way to go then. The DAW software may not use MMCSS at all and thus get into conflict juggling its lower priority multi-core threads versus the main ASIO driver thread. Disabling MMCSS in the RME driver again is the way to go then. On the other hand, some DAW software without MMCSS support still benefits from the RME driver's MMCSS option being enabled. Samplitude versions before the latest X4 are an example of this. The DAW software may expect the driver to set its own MMCSS priority while giving MMCSS priorities to its own multi-core threads only. This is what I would expect Cubase to do, but when I just checked version 9.5, it acts differently than expected. Even worse, changing sample size in the RME driver may reset priorities according to the RME driver's own MMCSS setting. I will get me a V10 license and test this further. Until then, I recommend to enable MMCSS in the RME driver or to not switch buffer sizes while Cubase is running. Again, it's a bit of a mess. Having MMCSS available as an option in the driver is the best possible solution. So this was back in 2018, and it's not like stuff has really gotten fixed since then, I don't think. I still hear Vin complaining about MMCSS all the time. So far with Reaper, it's Reaper. I don't really have that kind of problem. But there's a lot to read about this. A lot to know. Okay. So I was thinking about Line 6 and their Relay G10. Now, we talked a couple weeks ago. I had a dead Relay G50. It's a more professional wireless that they make, and I used it I tested it once, then I put it away for a year, and then when I went to start it back up, I got a blank screen and just worthless. But luckily it was still under warranty by a couple days anyway. And Army sent me I don't know if they fixed it or sent me a new one, but they had me send mine back, and they sent another one, and it works. Good, because there's none for sale right now because of stupid chip shortage. So at the same time, I did order. Did I order just the transmitter, or did I order the whole system off of Music Go Round? I have a spare now, but I tell you, these plug-in style ones like the G10, they're so much more convenient. You don't have to like have this thing hanging off your guitar strap and a wire coming out and everything. It's just a plug. You plug it into your guitar. I think a lot of you guys probably saw those XVive whatever ones where it's just like a plug. Let me see if I can find. Yeah. So these things, these XVive, I don't know how you say it, XVive, whatever. It's this you just plug them into like a USB thing to charge. They last like 8 hours. It's pretty insane. People were complaining about the latency, but aside from that, I don't know. I ordered two. I ordered the Lakato and the Joyo version of these things. One was a 2.4 gigahertz and one was 5.8 gigahertz. And I tell you, they're super convenient, easy to charge. You just plug them into your guitar. You don't need a transmitter. You don't need a receiver. It's just two little plugs. You plug it into your amp. You plug it into your guitar. You're done. I didn't notice any major latency or anything, but what I did, bummer that I found, was that neither of these devices could handle my EMGs. They just crap out if under too much level. If I turn my volume to halfway, they were fine, but that's not how I run my guitar. So I'm thinking maybe I can modify this thing with a little resistor or something somehow. I doubt it. It's all going to be all surface mounting there, but I mean, I really could just strap a resistor across the jack maybe. But I mean, it sucks that you'd have to do that. But they're so convenient and so cheap. They're like a tenth of the price of this other stuff, or a fifth anyway. No, like a tenth of the price of these other wirelesses. I mean, it's insane how cool they are. But if you can't run a strong pickup in it, then what the hell good is it, right? And so I've been asking at the Line 6 forum whether or not the relay could actually handle it. And of course, I get for some reason, I never get any answers about the wirelesses at the Line 6 forum. But what you do see, of course, is the important safety alert relay G10 transmitter fire hazard. Everybody's talking about there was some kind of catch fire with the G10s. But the G10S looks like it's got a proper receiver. It looks kind of cool, but it has half the benefits of like those XVive or X5 or whatever. So that's what I really like to know. Well, here, look at this. Red audio LED on relay on the G50 receiver, because it doesn't say in the manual what the audio light actually tells you, because it's normally green, but mine's turning red if I hit my guitar real hard. So I'm assuming that it's an overload button. So if that one's going to overload, I'm pretty sure the G10 will do it. And so I asked, can the G10s handle the level of active pickups? Given that the audio LED on my Relay G50 receiver goes from red from time to time, still waiting to hear from anyone if that means an overload, I'm a bit concerned the G10S won't be able to handle this either. I know electrically they'll work even if you have to use the right angle adapter. I'm worried about the level. And I haven't gotten any answers yet. If anybody out there's got a Relay G10, Line 6 Relay G10 or G10S, let me know, because I want to know if that sucker will handle this output, because if this chip shortage ever ends, I'd probably rather run that. What we got next? But yeah, I really like these things. They're so convenient. But man, like $30 for the Joyo one. Maybe it was $40. I don't know, but it's nothing to pay for a wireless, and it just works so good. But if you can't handle active, what are you gonna do? Okay, so Jim Lill, you were talked about his air guitar video where he just put a bridge on one bench and a headstock and tuners or nut on the other bench and nothing in between, just to bust this stupid Tonewood myth. And this guy, Chris Baroxy, I think I've seen some of his videos before. He went and says, reacting to that Tonewood video, what does the air guitar test prove? And he makes some claims like there's still, it's just, I mean, it's a giant God of the Gaps argument and stuff. And I encourage you to watch both Jim Lill's video and his. It's just, it was so fallacious. But what really bugs me is that, I don't know, I guess the price of you getting a video for free a lot of times is that these bands get to play their own music, and I don't mind that. But man, it was just like, here, we're going to talk about this right now. And instead of right now, they always do something else, some long intro or talk about subscribing or whatever. If you're going to say right now, get into it right now. But he says right now, and they start playing guitar for like 3 minutes. He's showing his licks, and he's actually a killer guitar player. I wish I could play like that. And then it was interspersed through the whole video of that stuff. But it was just, he made a lot of claims, but they were just so fallacious. So I ended up making a video reacting to him. So it says, reacting to Chris Baroxy, reacting to that Tonewood video. So if you want to see, it's on my channel. And it's one of the few that somebody actually commented on. But the guy says I unsubscribed from his channel after watching his video. That's kind of sad. But I mean, you know, do what you want. I said he sure can play. And you know, anyway, and the last thing, you know, it's kind of a short one. The last thing here is Simon Larkin is back, and Simon has a lot of videos on using Reaper and DAWs and mixing in general, but I think the stuff that really either he's known for or should be known for is how he describes how to do Reaper installs. I mean, that sounds like a no-brainer, right? You just install Reaper and you're done. What he does is he does a bunch of portable installs, so you can have a different sound card on each Reaper instance, or you can run Reaper into Reaper by using Reaper as a sound card. That's a whole crazy another thing. But it's worth it to you. I would check out Simon Larkin, especially if you're a Reaper user, but really if you're any kind of DAW user. And check out his videos on the technical stuff. It's really cool. He's got a lot of different stuff, but that's kind of the funnest ones for me. But he has a video called First Day Back, and he says he lives in a new place now. He's got his studio back up, and pretty happy to see him. So I'd please go check out Simon Larkin's channel. And I think I'm done. It's getting a little hot in here, and I'll see you guys next week.